Critical race theory is a framework for understanding the ways in which racism operates in the United States of America. And it's unique in that it foregrounds how practices, institutions, systems, and even U.S. culture itself have been forged in order to perpetuate unjust discrimination and burdens on people of color. Critical race theory looks at systemic problems with regard to white supremacy and the way they can manifest even apart from people's individual good intentions. Racism, as I often say, is a disease that is often diagnosed but never cured. And part of the problem is that historically we've had a framework for understanding racism which looks at racism as a problem of interpersonal bad actions, and if you can just get people to act better and have better intentions and treat people better interpersonally, we'll solve it, right? So critical race theory challenges that. And even though it may make us feel good to make us think that, you know what, if we can just change people's individual behavior, we can eliminate racism, just because it makes you feel good doesn't mean it's really the problem. Critical race theory explicitly says that things that were explicitly, avowedly racist in the past are still present right now in the present. For example, we can look at redlining. Redlining was a practice in the 20th century where negative financial statuses were given to black communities, which prohibited them from receiving financial assistance, including loans for housing. So we can look now at a map of a neighborhood in Memphis, for example, that was redlined in the 20th century, and we can still see that that community is still suffering, right? Because redlining led to disinvestment, being over-policed, underdeveloped. In fact, with the COVID-19 pandemic in 2019, 2020, and even in 2021, we can see that neighborhoods in Memphis that previously were redlined were also the communities that were hit hardest by COVID-19. So critical race theory is going to challenge us to say something that was explicitly racist in the past still has an effect in the present. People want to believe that we live in a post-racial, or at least a more racially progressive world than the one that critical race theory talks about. But when we look at the facts on the ground, we see that that's really not the case in every circumstance. The wealth gap between black citizens and white citizens has actually grown since the 1960s. It's actually gotten worse. We still have too many black students who are being educated in under-resourced communities and school systems. We still have too many African Americans who live in communities that are over-policed and over-polluted and under-resourced. And so critical race theory challenges this narrative that we really have achieved this kind of racially progressive country and we no longer have to look to the past. It also challenges this kind of mythic notion that if you just work hard enough, you'll achieve, and if people don't achieve, it's only because they haven't worked hard enough or they're doing something wrong, right? So we look at critical race theory as a way of connecting the past to the present, but also we realize that people don't like it because it really destroys a lot of what a lot of people would like to believe and prefer to believe about American history. In what other area of American life do we say that the way we can deal with the problem and really address it is by ignoring the truth about it or only, kind of whitewashing it? Already growing up, if you talk to generations of people, they will tell you that they only learn a few things about racism in the school system as it is. They heard a little bit about Martin Luther King Jr. They really didn't talk about the end of Martin Luther King Jr.'s life. They only talked about the I Have a Dream speech. And so there was a lot already missing. And we're saying on top of all of that, we're going to further exclude all of the systemic elements of white supremacy and racism in American life. But it also has another danger that we as a culture need to be very concerned about. It will seduce individuals to misunderstand currently existing racial disparities. For example, let's look at incarceration. African Americans make up 1/8 of the United States population, but they make up 1/3 of the U.S. prison system. So how do we explain that? Apart from a framework like critical race theory, we may be tempted, and in fact this has been put forward as an explanation, we may be tempted to say, well, African Americans have a debilitating criminal pathology, they commit more crimes, they're more prone to criminality, and so that's why they are overrepresented in the prison population. Without critical race theory, we completely ignore all of the systemic attempts to get black people in prison to begin with. So this is what's missing if we take critical race theory, and not even critical race theory, just a common sense understanding of the ways in which racism operates systemically. If we take that out of our public school curriculum, then we're really hindering our students from a full-fledged, well-rounded understanding of how racism operates, and they're going to be free to draw their own conclusions, ones that I'm afraid are going to be more harmful than helpful.